Hi!
Hi!
This is gonna be a video gaming vlog about how I managed to finish, complete, and above all find a lot of joy in playing Kirby Superstar. Now you gotta realize that I was playing this game during the time of my exam period, and a bit of a realization that comes to university students is exam season is a trap. You're waiting for studying to happen, for the right things to show up. You're waiting for the actual exams to come up in their dates. You're waiting for the results to come up. That's another weight on top of itself, it piles up. And because it's such a strict season, it's like 1 month, you don't really get a lot of opportunities to really enjoy yourself or relax or to feel like you've accomplished something. There's no room for successes, it's only waiting. So you gotta realize that playing Kirby Superstar for the Super Nintendo, while it may not have been the perfect game to play, especially when you're supposed to be studying for your exams, it is a very rewarding game. A very cathartic game too. The Kirby formula is all about having so many little joys in almost everything you do. Kirby's a cute puffball who can take the powers of any enemy he sees and use it across his little adventures to his advantage. Point is, the game is formatted like a playground buffet, where all the choices just drop in and you get to choose whatever you want, and even though the levels aren't particularly clever or interesting in terms of ideas, the enemies are very lackadaisical and lazy, and even the bosses are really more of a pushover than an actual threat, the game is rewarding because everything that you do with the powers, or even as Kirby himself, feels like something productive in that world. And even if you weren't thinking of completing these games, whether you were just playing one level or just one campaign, it just feels fun to play it and instantly get something fun out of it. But with Superstar, they wanted to go a bit of a step beyond than just little joys like the sound effects or the powers that you get, or the entire overpowered nature of Kirby from 1 second to an entire game. Kirby Superstar is 6 games in one. In Europe, it's even called Kirby Fun Pack, and by the time I completed it, I felt like I didn't only accomplish beating a game, or even beating 6 individual different games, but I felt like I completed a great chronology of Kirby stories, Kirby success stories even. Like Spring Breeze, it's a leisurely jog through 3 different worlds, it's 20 minutes long, it feels a lot of fun to just play around and goof off with all the silly little enemies, even the premise itself is just ridiculous, how it's just like, DDD stole all the food in Dreamland, someone has to stop him, only the legendary hero Kirby can do it. It's just a fun, childish adventure, and oh geez, the credits like scroll by like nothing else. It's like they really didn't want you to see who made this game or something, but I get why they did it, because it is a quick adventure to bring up another anticipation for the next adventure to come, because the one after that, Dynablade, oh, it's something much more! It's not just a goofy story about saving all of the food in Dreamland by some penguin, it's about a legitimate, mysterious threat to Dreamland that's cutting apart all the hills and trees and nature of the world, and it's up to Kirby to climb that mountain and figure out what's going on. And it's just little user interface stuff that really brings forth a new adventure to this. The game is formatted with a world map that has levels connecting to each other, and even some of the levels have alternating paths that you can discover, and even enemies to fight in the hub world. There's a lot more varied and interesting powers that get introduced in this campaign, and the levels feel a lot more sprawling, a lot bigger. And I guess that can be said about the adventure as a whole. It is a bigger scope of what Spring Breeze offered. The menus look different, there's now a clear story map to everything, and even the threat, DDD was just this weird guy who is a bit taller and a bit bigger than your size. Dynablade takes up half the screen, she does all sorts of Super Nintendo effects across the screen, and it's just such a more epic feeling than Spring Breeze. And the ending is just not a silly, yeah, I beat him sort of thing where the credits just scroll by. It's actually a heartwarming ending where Dynablade is legitimately dealt with like an adult, and it leads to a very satisfying conclusion, the end. By the time I finished Dynablade, I knew I wasn't finished with the game as a whole, but I did feel like I completed 2 very endearing Kirby short stories. But more importantly, I felt like I completed 2 stories where one of them was kind of in its growing stage, and the other sort of matured from the one that I played previously. And it's such a gratifying feeling to be able to play a bigger, greater adventure than the one you previously played like right there in a snap. You don't have to buy a Splatoon 2 and then a Splatoon 1 to understand why Splatoon 2 is better than Splatoon 1. The sequel comes right there. The game matures right there in the cartridge that you're playing. I think the beauty of Kirby Superstar comes with the fact that I've played a lot of games from beginning to end, but most of them that I played have been pretty daunting or very inconvenient to my time. Yeah, I know that's kind of a jab at me. It's sort of my fault at the end of the day, but the fact of the matter is that we have our own lives, we have our own things to carry out on our end, and not feeling like finishing a game because time is just not convenient with you is just human nature, I find. So even though it's not the longest game in the world, even though it's not an ongoing sport that you'll see on TV every night, or a game that is part of your lifestyle, or anything like that, even if the adventures are just 20 to 30 minutes, it feels very satisfying to just complete them, because it gives the feeling of completing a very quick game. All the campaigns have their own unique title screens, unique cutscenes, they all have credits to look forward to, they all have their own stylized HUDs. It feels like a different, but overall well-aged adventure from the one before it. And the beauty of Kirby Superstar is just seeing itself improve from one campaign to the next. There was already a big jump from Spring Breeze to Dynablade. But then you get to the Great Cave Offensive, which is this more explorative type of Kirby, where the power-ups have actual utility and have a lot more smart uses in the level design. And even the levels themselves, they're a lot bigger, more maze-like, more labyrinth-like. You actually feel like you're on a bit of an expedition where you don't know what exactly comes next. That's where the mystery comes in, but it just feels very expansive. Gourmet Race is its own unique sort of flavor. The physics of Kirby are all jacked up for the sake of this 3-course race against King Dedede to see who can eat the most food. Yeah, it's shorter than the other campaigns and the time trial mode is basically nothing, but it's just really admirable to see the game distract itself and to find different avenues to see what the formula can do in potential adventures. And I mean, come on, there's 3 courses, 3-course meal in Gourmet Race. You can't beat it, man. Revenge of Meta Knight. Okay, this is where the game really starts to step it up. It's this all-out epic where Kirby's trying to invade the halberd, and whenever he's going around, there's all sorts of commentary between the enemies and Meta Knight himself commenting about what's going on, and then there's different chapters that all feel like different parts of a story. Like how Kirby starts off in the halberd, but then shortly after he gets flown away to a different island, the enemies think that they got him, but then he runs around to get to Dynablade to get back on the halberd, and everything gets back on track, and it just feels like moment after moment of back-to-back goodness of an epic adventure. The more you progress in the story, the more the halberd starts to destroy itself, and it's just a very satisfying little narrative to play. And Milky Way Wishes, it's pretty much the ultimatum of all this. Larger levels, a larger scope, a more epic adventure. Kirby is essentially trying to stop the sun and moon from fighting by collecting all of the stars from different galaxies and different planets. And it just made me think, wow, I've really come a long way since, screwing around in green greens in Spring Breeze from the beginning of the game. And at the end of the day, that's what made Kirby Superstar so effective for me, especially at a time like this. At a time where I didn't feel like successes were really happening right away, where I felt like I had to wait and force myself to be patient throughout everything. Superstar, in its own unique way of how it's formatted, and I guess based in the circumstances that I was playing it in, it really made me appreciate the little successes, the little narratives that we make throughout our lives, and there's still satisfying narratives and adventures to be had. Maybe during the times of the actual stress and the actual worrying and the actual days of the exams themselves, in between all of that, I just wanted a quick adventure where I felt like I finished something and felt good about it. And that's exactly what Kirby Superstar managed to do. When you think about the package as a whole, it really makes you appreciate how the game is just a series of Kirby successes, and how one success has launched a brand new one, and it just feels like an overall maturing game from the first time you play it to when you finally finish it. And I think that's something that we seldom get to really respect in a lot of games, about how you're able to see them mature. And that's the aesthetic that I wanted to cover. So thank you very much. This is Matt, who crosses the line, and this has been Summer Vacation. But more importantly, this has been Aesthetic Analysis. Take care.